Hey everyone, it's Roland right here, and I'm back again with another Keyforge video. We're going to be going through a display case, which is 12 Keyforge decks, and we're going to be opening them and kind of looking at them. Now, because this is more of a deck opening and not a deck reveal, this means that when I'm going through the deck, it's going to be kind of first impressions to both of us. So I'm not going to be able to really elaborate on how the deck plays. I can kind of just give some thoughts and maybe some guesses as to how I think it'll play out. But that's the best I can really do in this situation. And with the game being super new, my thoughts, you got to keep in mind, may or may not be correct. Any thoughts or predictions may or may not be correct. So we're going to go ahead and get this started. This video will just open up one deck and kind of go through it together. I'm not a huge fan of how these deck cases are designed because it's not super... Well, I guess it is kind of easy to open them. All right, so what do we have here? Viveate, the Master of Lard. that is a I wouldn't say it's a terrible name. It's a terrible name in the sense that that's not a name anyone wants to call themselves. Viveate, the Master. I like how Master's in quotes too. The Master of Lard. Wow. Knowing that Lard is being used in deck generation just really sells this deck. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take out that Archon card. All right, so Viveate, the Master of Lard. This is going to be a Mars Shadows Logos deck, which I already have one of those. Hey, that's what Sockmet was using. So let's go ahead and just go through this deck. So we start off with Twin Bolt Emissions, standard Logos card, Amber, deal 2 damage to 2 creatures. Yeah, I figured we would have two. I don't really see one Twin Bolt Emissions that often. From the decks I've looked at, a lot of times they come in pairs. Maybe it's intentional, weirdly. Ooh, nice, Wild Wormhole. This is a fun Logos card. It's common. You get an Amber for playing it. You play the top card of your deck. Very straightforward card, but really cool. It has potential to really trigger some pretty wild stuff. Hey, Wild Wormhole. Oh, nice. We got Bat Drone. This is also a common creature for Logos. 2 power. It has Skirmish, and then when it fights, if it survives the fight, which it should, because it's Skirmish, you still won. Pretty solid card for Logos. Actually, now that I realize, that's 3 actions, and then we're straight into creatures. So we're going to see quite a few creatures here. We have Dexter. 3 power, play, capture 1. When he's destroyed, put him on top of your deck. We've seen him before. He's a common creature. We follow that up with Doc Bookton. This is also a common creature, 5 power, reap, draw card. I really like Doc. That's a useful Logos card. Combine that with Library of Babel and you can get some pretty nice turns. We follow that up with Ganymede Archivist. This is also a common creature, 3 power, reap, archive a card. I'm really liking where this is going. We're getting some good reap effects from Logos here. We have a second one. And we have Mother, which is a solid common card for Logos. 5 power. During your draw card step, you refill to 1 additional card. So you could refill up to 7, 8, so on and so forth. Mother's a great card to have in play. Any card with a passive ability, especially one that just makes you better, is really good. Because typically your opponent is going to prioritize this. They're going to prioritize it a little differently than if you had a card that has abilities that influence them directly. So if I had a card that made it so my opponent drew 1 less each turn, they're going to focus on that typically more than they're going to focus on Mother, which is nice. Also, passive cards in general, you don't have to claim Logos to get their effects. They can be stunned and you can just not use them and still get their effects. So I really like Mother. We follow that up with Neutron Shark. Nice. So this is a rare Logos card that's been talked about. Wait, is this rare? Yeah, this is rare. This is a rare Logos card that's been talked about a little bit. It's just 1 power. When it plays, fights, and reaps, you destroy an enemy creature or artifact and a friendly creature or artifact. Discard the top card of your deck. If that card is not a Logos card, you trigger this again. Neutron Shark is really brutal. Combine this with Dexter, and you can kind of just choose when that effect ends. I like it. I wish we had more Dexters with it, but hey, we'll see how it plays. We have a Novu Archaeologist again. I've had this card before. This is I think this is an uncommon. Yeah, this is an uncommon. 4 power. As an action, archive a card from your discard pile. Novu Archaeologist has the potential to be a really interesting card, especially since it lets you get cards in your archive back. But at the same time, it's his actions. You're not reaping, you're not fighting. This deck doesn't have Dimensional Door, so I'm not too hurt about that, but we'll see how he plays out. And then we have Titan Mechanic. 6 costs. This is a common. While he's on the flank, each key, both you and your opponent, cost 1 less. So you can craft them for 5 by default, essentially. This card's a little funky. It is a 6 power, so for Logos, it's kind of neat. They don't have a lot of like high-powered cards. He's on the flank, so you can kind of control if you want to get him off the flank, you just put a creature next to him. He's pretty solid with Spectral Tunneler, but it looks like we're not going to have that in this deck. That's all of our Logos cards. Man, look at all those creatures. That's a lot of creatures. 3 action cards from Logos. It's pretty rare. And unfortunately, we didn't really get any. These action cards don't really combo very well with these creature cards. That's kind of a bummer. Logos really is hit or miss from what I've seen so far. Start off with our Mars cards. We have Battlefleet, really solid Mars card. In some ways, I feel like this is almost a staple Mars card. You get an Amber. When you play it, you reveal any number of Mars cards from your hand, and for each card revealed, you may draw an additional card. I love it. It's a great card. We have 2 of them. Also very nice. Very, very nice to have 2 of those. EMP Blast. This is looking pretty good so far. This is an action. You gain 1 Amber. Each Mars creature and each robot creature stunned. Each artifact is destroyed. So far we have no artifacts, so that's pretty solid. But we do we have robots? We have 1 robot and Mother, and I'm assuming Bat Drone is probably a robot. Yeah, so this could hurt us. It depends on how many Mars creatures we end up seeing in this deck. But, I mean, we have no artifacts yet, so this is kind of helping us so far. Next up, we have Orbital Bombardment. This is this is an uncommon action. You gain an Amber. Reveal any number of Mars cards from your hand. For each card revealed, deal 2 damage to a creature. Then we have Phosphorus Stars. This is an interesting one. This is a common action. Stun each non-Mars creature and gain 2 chains. This is kind of like a pseudo board wipe card, right? You're really delaying your opponent. But the cost of 2 chains, it doesn't give any Amber. And so far we have a ton of Logos creatures. So this card, it can be hit or miss in some ways. Next up we have Sample Collection. This is going to be an uncommon action card. Play, put an enemy creature into your archives for each key your opponent has forged. If any of these creatures leave their archives, they return to their opponent's hand instead. Alright, it's not great. It'd be nicer if it gave you an Amber, I guess, but when you play it, you're archiving 1 or 2 of their creatures pretty much. It's okay. It kind of sucks because this deck, being with Logos, you're probably going to pick up your archives. This is better if you don't have any archives, I think, because then you just leave your enemies in your archives. But there are kind of better enemy removal cards in the game, so I'm not super sold on that. Next we have Soft Landing. This is a common action. Play the next creature or artifact you play this turn enters play ready, which is pretty neat, especially for Mars, but so far we haven't really seen a lot of Mars creatures here. We have another action. This is a common. Squawker. Gain an Amber. Ready a Mars creature or stun a non-Mars creature. This is a really good card, by the way. Squawker is a great card. I really wish I had it in my Sockmet deck. I wish I had both of these in that deck. But I'm kind of concerned. We're not going to have a lot of targets for this. We have a Mother Gun next. This is an artifact. This is a common artifact. Reveal any number of Mars cards from your hand. Deal damage to a creature equal to the number of Mars cards revealed this way. Mother Gun is a pretty nice artifact to use. All right, so we get our first creature. We get Bleepip, something like that. 2 power Mars creature. Reap, the next Mars creature you play enters play ready. Okay, I'm starting to get kind of concerned because I have a feeling we're going to have like maybe 2 Mars creatures here. Zizix the Many. Fight Reap, you may reveal a creature from your hand. If you do, archive it, and Zizix the Many gets that many +1 power counters. See, more archive cards. Man. Alright, so next up we're going to have Biometrics Backup. This creature gains destroyed. You may put this in your owner's archives. This gives you an Amber. Wow, 2 Mars creatures, and we get a Biometrics Backup. A lot of archiving here. Alright, so next up we're going to move on to Shadows, I'm assuming. So we're going to have a Booby Trap here. This is an action, gain an Amber. Deal 4 damage to a creature that is not on a flank with 2 damage splash. So it deals 2 damage to the 2 adjacent creatures to the target. I like this card a lot. It's pretty solid. You can, in some ways, I feel like this is better than Twin Bolt Emissions. Obviously, later in the game, if your opponent has like a much larger field, maybe it's not as good. But for the most part, I do like it a lot. Next up, we're going to have Ghostly Hand. This is a pretty solid Shadows card. You gain 2 Amber. If your opponent has exactly 1 Amber, steal it. I feel like this is a good kind of like baseline of what stealing should, or what Amber generation kind of looks like, which is like a 1 card gives you 3 Amber. There's a Sanctum card that does that. This card gives you 2, but it has a potential of making it a deficit of 4. So I just like Ghostly Hand. And the artwork on this card is really quite haunting. Next up, we have Lights Out, really solid Shadows card. This is an Amber, return 2 enemy creatures to their owner's hand. You can do some really cool things with this. You also have to keep in mind, like, it gets rid of upgrades, which can be really important on some cards, and you can get rid of things like Taunt, and so on and so forth. Next, we have Miasma. This gives you an Amber. Your opponent skips their Forge a Key step on their next turn. Great card, especially if you have something like Bait and Switch, which, as you might have noticed, we don't have in this deck. It would have been right here. So far, we don't have a lot of stealing in this deck at all, or capture even. Like, this deck doesn't have a lot of Amber control on your opponent's side of things. But even still, Miasma can be a pretty solid card. Can give you maybe the turn you need to forge your last key. We have Relentless Whispers. Another action, deal 2 damage to a creature. If this damage destroys that creature, steal an Amber. This is okay. It's great against, obviously, cards that have low health totals. It still does decent work for you, even if it doesn't destroy the creature. You're almost always better off playing this than holding it, but, you know, too much to protect. Okay, so here's where Miasma comes into play really well. Your opponent gets to 6 Amber, play Miasma. That way, on their following turn, you know, they might go above that 6, and then you play too much to protect. You get an Amber, and you steal all the Amber they just gained. This is important that this is in this deck. That or bait and switch go really well with Miasma. All right, next up, we have the Artifact, Safe Place. This gives you an Amber. Is this a rare? This is rare. You may spend Amber on Safe Place when forging keys. As an action, you may move 1 Amber from your pool to Safe Place. I really wish this action was Omni. I just don't feel like, because artifacts can get destroyed by a lot of things, obviously like with EMP Grenade in this deck, or EMP Blast or whatever. You really run that risk. I don't know. I don't know if this fits really well here. This is also a pretty solid card with Effervescent Principle, which is a Logos card that cuts your Amber in half. But yeah, I don't know if that really fits well here. Man, we have another artifact, Skeleton Key. A friendly creature captures 1 as an action. All right, that's not too bad, especially considering it looks like all of our creatures are going to be in Logos. I guess this actually is kind of a good card to have in a sense, because like, oh, I have a bunch of shadow cards in my hand, but all my creatures in play are Logos. Well, you can still at least use your Skeleton Key to kind of get stuff going. You can use Safe Place to I guess, you know, keep your Amber from being stolen as well. Safe Place is also really good if you have Bait and Switch, by the way, because it removes it from your pool, so Bait and Switch essentially gives you more Amber. I don't know. There's a lot of Amber generation here, obviously. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 at the bare minimum. And then a few there. Yeah, there's quite a bit of Amber generation on a lot of our action cards in this deck. Speed Sigil, another artifact. Okay, now EMP Blast is looking way worse. Gain an Amber, the first creature played each turn enters play ready. Holy cow, is this deck a mess? Oh my god, this would have been great if we had a bunch of Mars creatures, if we had those cards that are like, you need to have ready Mars creatures. And then Mars already has stuff that does that, but then there's only 2 creatures. Ah, jeez, this is, wow. You know, I don't want to be overly negative on a deck, especially as we're looking at it, but dang, there are some issues there. Subtle Maul Artifact. Your opponent discards a random card from their hand. This is a good artifact. I swear, is this an artifact? No. Okay, we finally get a creature. Our last 2 cards. Muck the Knife. This is a rare Shadows creature. 3 power. It has elusive. You may use Mac the Knife as if it belonged to the active house. That's really good. That's good for this deck particularly. As an action, deal damage to a creature. If it destroys that creature, gain 1. This is essentially just a Seeker Needle. That's a creature that can be used every turn. I like it a lot. It'd be great if this deck was more kind of fully realized. Mac the Knife would have been really cool to see. And then we have Naughty Thief, common Shadows creature, 2 power, elusive, action, steal 1. Man, Viveate, the Master of Lard, is... Well, we've gone through this deck, and we have 2 Shadows creatures, 2 Mars creatures. How many logos do we have? We had a lot. I can just do it real quick. We had, I think, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, so in total, 9 plus 4, 13. 13 creatures in a 36 card deck. That's not great. Tons of actions, tons of Amber generation from those actions. The big problem here that I really don't like is that we got a ton of Mars cards that really hinge on you having Mars creatures in play. This one, Mars creatures. Squawker, Mars creature. Soft Landing, pretty much Mars creature. We don't even have any Mars artifacts. Yeah, it's a bummer. It's a bummer for sure. So guys, that was Viveate, the Master of Lard. I will see you guys in my next opening video when we're going to open another pack. See ya.